What's going on, Colts Nation? I'm Lawrence Owen. This is Colts Law, and today I've got with me former full press coverage Colts writer, guy I work with over there on full press coverage, Zach Sears. What's going on, Zach? How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Hey, my pleasure, man. I enjoyed sitting down and writing articles with you back on full press coverage. Now, obviously, I had to leave full press coverage to go to kind of go more into my podcasting, and that's I guess what happens. But I'm glad we kept this connection that we've had over the last couple of years with you and me and Max. Even though Max and I don't always have see eye to eye on things, I still love his input as well. So I get it. You were in school, so you had to kind of step off to the side a little bit, correct?
Take a few steps back.
So how's life been treating you in this COVID season?
Pretty good. I had a few jobs after that. Pretty much nothing. Just stay home, stream, play video games. What else is there to do? Play Madden. Do 10,000 rebuilds a week. Just fantasize about who the next Colts quarterback and how the defense is going to build up and all that.
Yeah. Now, I see you have Pierre Desir back there, and if I remember right, you had an interview with him, correct?
Yes, sir. My first ever interview. Sadly, when I went to the game, I wasn't able to get his interview signed, but I do have the Grover Stewart one, which luckily he turned out to come on this season very well.
Earned himself a contract extension because of it.
Yes, sir.
All right, so there's a ton of things that we could talk about with the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, crap ton of holes to fill. We had 5 starting positions on the defense. We got 2 starting positions on the offense, not including wide receiver because, maybe not. We'll see how that turns out. Obviously, quarterback, left tackle on the offense. But the defensive side, we got 2 cornerbacks we need to fill. We got a middle linebacker. We got 2 defensive ends, all of which are free agents. And I don't know if any of them comes back. I would like to see some of them come back, but there's a good possibility we won't see any of them back in the Colts uniform next year. And we have to start looking at how are we going to fill these positions with only $70 million? We got to remember left tackle quarterback takes up a big chunk of money or could, quarterback. There's a possibility. There's a way out there that the Colts could get away with, paying lesser money for a quarterback. Well, that's though for another stream. Left tackle, however, unless you're going with a draft pick, is going to cost money. Yeah. Your defensive ends are going to cost $10 million plus, right? Your cornerbacks, if they're worth their salt, it's going to be $8 million plus each. So if you look at that, that's $36 million in 4 players, right? Sheesh. Holy crap! And that's on the defense. That's over half of our cap right there, right? And those are salt players. Those are guys that are okay, not spectacular.
Yeah.
Now, as we look at these 5 guys that are leaving, we got TJ Carrie, who came in, started for Rockison over the last couple games of the season, played very, very well. Then we got Xavier Rhodes, who was the highest rated cornerback on the Indianapolis Colts last year, even over fan favorite Kenny Moore. He had a higher rating on PFF. He had his passer rating that he gave up to opposing quarterbacks when targeted was much, much lower than what Kenny Moore was. You got middle linebacker Anthony Walker Jr., starting middle linebacker, great guy, someone who's going to be missed in the locker room, not just on the field. And then both of our defensive ends, Denico, Autry, who had 9.5 sacks last year, and Justin Houston, who had 9.5 sacks. So both those guys combined, that's 19 sacks gone.
That's a few key players in a key position for us, especially with not the best depth there.
Yeah. So if there was 1 or 2 guys that you could legitimately go, I got to bring these guys back. I got to focus on bringing them back. Who would they be?
Absolutely, Denico, Autry, and Justin Houston. No question. They both played amazing for what they were advertised as. Everyone thought that they'd be average to below average, and then they come in and Houston had a few safeties they both had a bunch of sacks. They both made impacts, and a lot of that goes to Ballard bringing in DeForest Buckner because just absorbing most of the blocking. But they just both played huge when everyone thought that when they came into Indy, that they would be below average to average at best.
Yeah. Well, obviously, Denico, he came in the first year with Indianapolis, showed a lot of high end, right? There was games where he had 2-3 sacks, and then he would disappear for a while. He kind of did that again this year, but then again, he was being flipped in and out with a bunch of different guys, like Al-Qadim Muhammad. Later on in the season, you'd have Kimoko Toure come in for a few snaps on him, so he wasn't there all the time. Justin Houston, however, was there all the time. And the great thing about Justin Houston is it's not just the sack and the pressures. It's the fact that he's very good at holding the edge. He doesn't over pursue. He recognizes when a screenplay is happening and will hold back to cover that running back. He's a great all-around guy. Nothing in the world is as important as experience on the defensive end, because as a pass rusher, you can be the offense can use that pass rush ability of you against you if you don't know what you're looking for.
Absolutely. It's some of these younger defensive ends you see, especially when there's a veteran offensive tackle, you could just see them absolutely abuse that experience advantage over them, shove them inside. They turn the corner. Shove them outside, there's a giant hole for them. Some of these veteran offensive tackles just absolutely abuse some of these younger defensive ends, and without that experience there on guys like Kimoko Toure and Banagu, there's going to be a lot of problems there if there isn't that experience.
So Autry's still showing that he's got a lot left in the tank, even though he's 30, 31. He's right around Justin Houston's age. I think he's a year younger. But he showed a little bit more consistency this season than he did last season. But we're going to need another defensive end. Now, obviously, the Colts can go two ways here. You can go grab one in free agency, or you could draft one. Now, to me, defensive end is not someone that you want to just go half-hearted in. If you're going to go after a defensive end, you're going to have to go all in and get some serious talent. To me, about the only guy that I like the most, let's say at the first-round draft pick, is Jalen Phillips out of Miami. He is a stud. It's amazing what he's able to do after all the stuff that he's went through in his life, starting out where he was starting out. Then he had this accident on his moped, which took him out of the game, thought he was never going to play football again, comes back for Miami for a year and just dominates. And with his height, he's like 6'5", like 260 pounds, and is so fast and strong. I think a guy like that, I don't know if you've looked, you may not have, but you have a guy like that who reminds me a lot of the Freak from the Tennessee Titans back in the day. And he's just a really tall, lengthy, quick defensive end. You put him beside DeForest Buckner.
And all those attributes, exactly what Ballard loves. Lengthy, quick, strong, just checking the boxes for Ballard.
Yeah. But again, it would definitely be a first-round pick. I don't see Jalen Phillips dropping past the 21st. But there's also a lot of defensive ends right now in free agency.
Oh, yeah.
And if I remember right, there's an actual legitimate trade proposal that you have that you think might legitimately fit with the Colts. Why don't you go ahead and talk about some of the options you like at the primary defensive end pass rush position?
I only have really one for a trade scenario, and that's obviously with the New Orleans Saints, just because their cap is just absolutely abysmal right now. And so they're going to have to move on from some of their veteran guys. And so Cameron Jordan, someone who is still at the peak end of their game, still a decent amount of money in their contract, still someone that deserves to get paid, a little bit older, but obviously if they're still producing, age doesn't really, it only matters in the future, meaning like 4 or 5 years down the line. But if we could trade for someone like Cameron Jordan for a second and maybe like a fifth or something like that, it could work out really nice for us, get that edge pressure that we need, and just also bring back that veteran talent if we aren't able to resign Houston and Autry to deals that they want.
Yeah, I'm looking at his contract right now. Obviously, he'll be 32 this year, about the same age as Justin Houston, and he signed all the way through 2024. So he'll be 36 years old before he's a free agent. Now, there's not a lot of defensive ends that play till they're 36. Only a very few kind of come to mind. But and the contract base salary, you're looking at 12 mil this year, 13 and a half next year, 14 million the year after that. And then in 2024, about $5 million. Looks like the dead cap on him is this year, however, is going to be like 17 mil if he's traded. That's going to hurt a lot. Now,
yeah,
that's a chunk of money. So I don't know if they trade him out that much. Now the cap hit is like damn near $20 million for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So that would save them money long term by trading him out. So do you like Cameron Jordan more than you like what Justin Houston has brought for the Colts?
I think Houston deserves the contract to be back because just the way he's performed. If for whatever reason Houston didn't want to come back, I feel like trading for Cameron Jordan would be a good A2 selection, like just Houston A1, Cameron Jordan, trading for him for some relatively cheap prices considering he's still top 10 edge rusher in the league. Maybe in the deal we could work out to where we take some of the hit from the penalty so that they get long term as well as not as much penalty short term this year, because that would secure us. He's probably going to retire within 3 or 4 years, but that still solidifies, gives us time to look for a replacement for those 3 or 4 years. And that's all just if Houston doesn't want to resign or for the price that we're offering. Like I said, I think Houston is my personal number one favorite to come back and play that defensive end spot. With how he worked with DeForest Buckner, I think it was just perfect. It works out. He deserves it. But it's not a horrible idea to go after a guy like him, considering what the Saints are dealing with.
Looks like Ant Rodgers agrees with you. He likes Autry. Caleb, man, we will be getting to the secondary here pretty soon. Jack here says, hopefully we get Romeo or Bud Dupree. That's an interesting. I like the Bud Dupree. I think he's going to cost a fat wad of cash as well, though, on extension wise. So I don't know. That's gonna be a lot of money. What do you think?
I'm not the biggest fan of Bud Dupree in our system. I think he could be a really good player, like how the Steelers run it, 3-4. I think he's a really good 3-4 outside linebacker. But with the Colts, he would be in that like middle zone. It'd be like when we had Jonathan Hankins. When we signed him from the Giants, he wasn't really a scheme fit, and so he suffered. I think the same thing would happen if we brought in Dupree. He's a lot skinnier than a defense, or he's not the same build as like a 4-3 defensive end. he's, like I said, perfect 3-4 outside linebacker.
All right. Ant Rogers says he thinks that your pick is a little expensive, but he likes Carl Lawson. What do you think of Carl Lawson?
I'm a little bit indifferent. I like the idea of having a somewhat young guy who can come in and bring that pressure. But I don't know if he's going to be the right fit for us, cap wise and scheme wise. More so cap wise, because I feel like there's going to be the teams that overpay. Same thing with Trey Hendrickson. I think him and Carl Lawson are in the same boat. I think they're both going to be overpaid, and I don't think the Colts go for that, especially when with their cap situation, which they have to spread it out. As well as I think Ballard would rather take a chance hitting on a guy in the draft round 2, round 3, instead of possibly overpaying a guy who could be one of those things where he shined in his last few years with the team that drafted him, goes into free agency, makes a lot of money, and then just their spark fizzles out.
Okay. Let's check that. Oh yeah, Justin Houston was a 3-4 outside linebacker as well, but Houston has the right body size to pull that off.
Yeah.
You know, that's the one thing about Justin. When I went to training camp, not last year, obviously, but the year before, Justin Houston is a beast, and he works out so hard. Training practice would be over with. Everybody's leaving the building. All the signings are done. You know, people are leaving. He's out there on the sled hammering all by himself. No one anywhere around him. I love his work ethic. We got Master Payne 204 out here giving a little bit of shout out to you. Just wanted to bring that up. I see you out there. Let's see here. Ant Rogers says he thinks there are better options in the draft over free agency when it comes to defensive end. I personally, like I said, I absolutely have a love affair with Jalen Phillips. I hope that I could get an interview with him, because that is the one guy that if the Colts end up getting a free agent quarterback to start this year, whoever it might be, and decide they don't want to move up in the draft, they want to spend that first rounder on a defensive end, that's the guy I would love to have. Now, going back to middle linebacker. All right, here's the issue with the middle linebacker. Anthony Walker Jr., that's going to be a hole, because in my opinion, as much I understand, Anthony Walker Jr. is a fan favorite for the Indianapolis Colts. All right. He's one of my favorite linebackers, right?
It's hard to not like the guy.
Yeah. Coach on the field, great guy, goes out there, helps the every player around him. Him and Darius Leonard are like this, right? So, but let's face facts. He's one of the best guys at reading an offense before they even take a snap, and he's great against the run. And you bring up a good point before the stream that in a 4-3 scheme where you got that middle linebacker, you know, for tackle, you got your quick edge guys, but you need a good solid run defender up the middle. He's that guy, you know, and he would be. And I think he's gonna push anywhere between $10 to $12 million, maybe more, in free agency. And I don't think the Colts can afford to spend that right now, especially looking at the other linebackers they have, that they're going to have to spend that kind of money, a lot more money, especially with Darius Leonard and an extension soon. So go ahead, give me your thoughts on Anthony Walker. And then is there anyone out there this offseason that you would like the Colts to go after? To fill that spot?
I think he is a guy that deserves to get paid in the eyes of Ballard, and obviously every Colts fan. We love the guy. He plays really rough. His weakest part, or his weakest ability, is pass coverage. We've seen him falter here and there, a little bit of struggle. I think Ballard is looking at it the same situation as he is Marlon Mack, where the guy deserves to get paid, but it might not be here. It most likely won't be here. And so I think a team that runs a 3-4 scheme should go and pay him what he deserves. Because if they can pair a amazing tackler, a guy who can read the offense, with a great coverage guy, as well as you still have the guys on the edge rushing, I think that defense will start to flourish because Anthony Walker and his smarts when it comes to the game. He's, like you said, able to read the offenses before anyone else. He's just a little bit rough when it comes to coverage. And so if you pair him with that coverage guy, I know we had Darius Leonard, Bobby Okereke, but when we're dropping into zone coverage, he has to drop back. It's a little bit rough, and he gets picked on. Just putting it bluntly, he gets picked on because where are you going to go? You can't go against Kenny. You couldn't have gone against Xavier. You couldn't have gone against Okereke. There's nowhere else to go except for at him, or just a gap in the zone. But if he is able, or if a team that runs a 3-4 system and has that coverage guy, like maybe the Bears, the Steelers, the 49ers, they could help him flourish into one of the top 5 offense or middle linebackers in the league if he isn't already one. Like, just elevate his game in general.
Yeah. Okay, before we talk about possible replacements at that middle linebacker position, I do want to go back. Sarah Reel brings up a good point, and I completely forgot. I can't believe I forgot to bring this up. Sarah, thank you so much for bringing this up. Now, before I highlight your question and get into that, I want to thank everybody that's watching this live right here on YouTube. Appreciate you all so much. I know, Zach, you brought some people in. Hello. But which I appreciate everybody that's here. Thank you so much. Hey, don't forget, while you're here, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. That way, and hit the bell so you're notified next time I go live. You could also go down into the description, check us out. You can see where Zach can be found on Twitter. You can find my Twitter. You can find my Patreon. I have no patrons yet. Help a man out. I'm diving into this as my full-time job. I'll be bringing in streams all the time. I'll be bringing in special guests all the time, such as Zach right here. But yes, please smash that like button. Helps analytics. Thank you. Now back to Sarah. Sarah, thank you for bringing up J.J. Watt. How did I completely overlook talking about this man? Okay, because there was no way on God's green earth that the Houston Texans was going to trade J.J. Watt to the Indianapolis Colts. But they did something really dumb. They just released him. All right.
For his request, to be fair.
It was his request.
And on good terms.
But they shouldn't have done, because what if he signs with an AFC South opponent? That's just stupid. You don't want to play against one of the best defensive ends to ever play the game. Best defensive players to ever play the game. This is a 3-time defensive MVP. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
Now, is there any shot Indianapolis signs J.J. Watt?
In my mind, no, none whatsoever. Only because I feel like J.J. Watt wouldn't want to do that. Like, he wouldn't want to join a rival of the Texans. And although how the Texans handle some of their talent, Hopkins and Watson, I feel like he wouldn't want to do that just because the relationship with Houston, and I feel like his favorite choice is obviously joining his brothers on the Steelers or joining a team who is a solidified. Because if we think about it, the Colts aren't solidified. Without a quarterback, we're not solidified to make the playoffs. That he would want to go and get that ring. He's had the defensive Player of the Year awards. He has the single trophies. He wants the overall team trophy now. Either he joins his brothers and hunts for it, or he joins another team where he can hunt for it. Okay.
I personally think there is a slim shot, but the only way the Colts would be able to land J.J. Watt is if it's announced before free agency starts that they have a quarterback that is competent, right? That's how I feel. If the Colts have look like they have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs and making a Super Bowl run, I think JJ might go that because he knows this team.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. JJ Watt knows the team very, very well. As good as anyone can who's never played for the Indianapolis Colts. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, I think there's a slim shot, and I think that's the only way JJ Watt makes it. Yeah. And the money he's going to want, this is near the end of his career. He is going to be ring chasing. And so he might legitimately sign for lesser money if he believes the team that he's going for has a shot at that ring. That's what these older veterans who had great careers do in order to just cap, because he doesn't have that's the one thing he does not have on his Hall of Fame resume, right?
Yeah.
Is a Super Bowl ring. So that's something that he's going to be looking for. And in order to get on a team that he believes truly has a shot, or that he might be a missing key or cog to doing that, I think he could legitimately sign, because he's made a fat wad of cash over his career.
Money is not a
money is
thing
not,
he needs right now.
that is right. Now, like you said, it is a divisional rival. It would almost be as bad as, Brady to the Colts when it came to that situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Looking at it from a Texans point of view, if you were a Patriots fan and Brady signed with the Colts last year, you'd have been like, I hate you forever,
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, like I said,
I feel like it's almost poetic for him to try and go with the Steelers, because both of his brothers are there. First, it was just TJ. Then Derek signs with them. And now he's released, given that he asked, he's released and given the opportunity to go wherever he wants. I feel like, as much as everyone has been putting it out there, it's poetic just to put him with his brothers, especially with Bud Dupree leaving and, a lot of questions around the Steelers, although their offense is another story.
Yeah.
I feel like it would make too much sense, unless they cut Derek because they don't need a fullback anymore. It makes too much sense to put him with his brothers. It's like Shaquille and Shaquem Griffin, keeping them together. It's too much of a nice thing to not have. You just got to put them together. I don't know.
But are the Steelers Super Bowl, would they make a run with JJ? I mean, because really, as much as he would love probably to play with his brothers, I don't know if he would trust Ben Roethlisberger to get him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's an issue. I mean, Ben did not look good last year. Even the only reason he looked good against the Colts is because our starting strong safety went down with a concussion, and he took advantage of that. He started throwing deep to a rookie who, didn't understand the scheme. He didn't have a lot of play time, and he just took advantage of it in the second half and completed 3 or 4 really deep passes against him. And that's the only reason why the Steelers won that game. Other than that, the last second half, though, the entire season, Ben Roethlisberger looked like crap. So I don't know. Now, I honestly, I could see him signing with Seattle. That would be because Seattle is a team that needed defensive help, needed pass rush help. And that was one of the things that was really keeping him back, especially in the playoffs. So, yeah, I like the Seattle fit for him. I wish he could go with the Colts. I would love to see J.J. Watt in a Colts uniform. Obviously, he won't be using 99 because that's taken, right? I don't see DeForest Buckner going, I'll give it to you. No. But, I mean, he might have like a different number that he would be able to use. Or maybe they'll give him 99.5. That would be awesome.
99 and a half.
Yeah. All right. Guys, all right. So again, in the live chat, I've got, I think, your whole family in here.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for being here. Appreciate you all. Don't forget, smash that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed. I need to get to 1,000 subscribers, so, any help would be great. I see some tags in here about Godwin, about Russell Wilson. I will be talking about those guys, but not in this stream, because we're kind of focusing on the defense right now and how we're going to fill these holes from the starting position. Now, is there anyone at middle linebacker in free agency or the draft or a possible trade that you think would be a good person that would be able to come in and fill the spot from what we both agree is most likely going to be the loss of Anthony Walker Jr.?
I don't have anybody in mind whatsoever. I think we have a few depth guys that could step in and fill that role. But free agency, it's pretty bone dry. There's a few guys here and there who gonna get paid by somebody, and then there's us who we could draft a guy, we can try to sign a guy. I feel like what's going to happen is we not switch, but if we can't draft a guy to be a solid piece, and if none of our current guys show that they can be a solid piece, we'll sign a veteran to like a veteran minimum deal. They'll come in, hang out for a while, hang out for the season, a tribute win necessary. I feel like we're going to see a lot of, if we can't get that piece in the draft or one of our guys to step up that's currently on the roster, I feel like we'll see a lot of 4-2 and an extra linebacker, an extra safety maybe come down in the box. Because with Leonard and Okereke, they're just monsters athletically. But none of these other guys are kind of proven. There's no standout guys in free agency. In the draft, there's decent depth. We could probably get a guy with a second pick, but there's a lot of positions that we need, maybe not ones that we fill that early. We're not going to pay a top guy when there really isn't a top guy. I feel like it's going to be more left open to the draft and the guys that we currently have the roster with maybe a sign of a veteran guy.
Yeah, I mean, the only couple guys that I see in the draft right now, inside linebacker wise, that the Colts might be looking at in free agency, possibly Avery Williamson from Pittsburgh, possibly Denzel Perryman from the Chargers. But they're not any, like you said, they're not really super standoutish. One thing that Chris Ballard does really, really well, all right, is draft linebackers. This is pretty darn obvious, okay? So, I mean, Jack hits it right on the head. I think if we let Walker walk, Ballard drafts a linebacker. And, I mean, we've had three very great, outstanding linebackers for a second, and a fourth, fifth. I think Walker was a fifth round pick. Yeah, I think he was a fifth round pick. I have utter faith.
Oh, yeah.
That Chris Ballard can find a linebacker that'll fit that spot just perfectly fine. But the one position that Chris Ballard has been whiffing on since he's been here with the Indianapolis Colts is the cornerback position. All right, in the draft. I mean, he's had some pretty bad whiffs, right? Two of those whiffs play for the New York Jets right now. All right.
No, Quincy Wilson was released.
Oh, was he? Oh,
he was on the Giants, and then I had to follow him. I have a bunch of signed stuff. Maybe not the best choice, but still,
I like Wilson. I liked his attitude.
I did too.
Yeah. I wish he would have worked out, but but Nate Harrison, I think,
sparks, is still there. It never came into a fire. It was just sparks.
Yeah, I think Nate Harrison's still with the Jets. And then Rocky Sin right now it's not looking good for him either. So we've got cornerback issues. All right. We have two starting quarterback issues. And these we're talking big money when we're talking free agency right now. Now, Xavier Rhodes, TJ Carrie, both these guys, when they started, they played very well. Both of them had pick sixes. They both had multiple interceptions. They both had really good quarterback passer ratings when targeted against.
Played a lot better than they were projected to. And that's just the story of the Colts.
And we can't talk about Kenny Moore in this situation because Kenny Moore is a nickel cornerback. All right, he's a smaller guy who covers the slot, and he's not an outside corner. And we need 2 outside cornerbacks. And the biggest issue here is I don't know. Rumors is that the Colts offered him about $9 million for Xavier Rhodes, and Xavier thinks he's worth more than that. That's about what the market is leaning towards. If you go look at Spot Track or Over the Cap or something like that, they're registering about $9 million for Xavier Rhodes from the season that he had last year. Now, so he might not come back. TJ Carrie, I don't know if they like him enough to give him a $5-6 million contract for a year or two. Possibly. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but we still need that number 1 corner, that number 1 guy, right? And if Xavier Rhodes don't come back, we're in a deep world of hurt, guys.
We got 3 cornerbacks, maybe, with Kenny Moore, Rock, and Isaiah Rodgers.
Marvell Tell.
Yeah, he's coming back from.
He's coming back. Yeah. So, but still, I don't know if any of those guys can be I don't trust them enough to be a lockdown number 1 starter right out the gates.
Yeah.
Now, I brought up something on Twitter earlier today that I have been mulling over for the past month. Okay, and ever since I was watching the game, the Saints in the playoffs. I've watched every game this year of every team. And my eyes always kind of moved over to this guy and like, man, this guy is good. I love the way he plays. I love his athleticism. I love his intensity. And I realized the Saints, like you said, they're in cap hell this year. They are going to need help. And they're in a they're in a worse situation than what the 49ers were in last year, right? Whereas the Niners, they were in a cap situation. They were in a position where they could only sign one of their guys on the defensive line, whether it be Armstead, whether it be Buckner. They knew they'd get more compensation for Buckner. So, they got something out of Buckner before they had to, get rid of him. Just let him go because they couldn't re-sign him. They couldn't afford him. The Saints, I feel, is in a worse situation with Marshawn Lattimore, the multiple Pro Bowl cornerback who is just a stud, right?
Yeah.
If they trade him this year, and I believe the Colts could get him if they want to go this route with their 21st pick, it would save this season. It would save them, the Saints, over $10 million off their cap. It would also give them the first round pick where they could go out and get their replacement, much the similar way that the Niners did when the Colts gave, was it 15th, I think?
13th.
Or 13th pick to the Niners. So, yeah, I think this is a win-win because Lattimore is everything that Chris Ballard hoped Rocky Sin would be, right?
Yeah.
He is a physical guy. He's going to light you up. He's going to play really close. He can play man press. He's got the athleticism. He knows how to play both man and zone very, very well. And he brings that energy on the field much the same way Darius Leonard does for the Indianapolis Colts. I love this trade. The only thing is, I think that if they do this, if the trade happens, they're going to need to drop that extension on him immediately like they did DeForest Buckner. And I think he's going to roll about $15 million a season. You would have to give him like a 5-year contract, $15 million a year at least. But you could back in that a little bit to help out things. So what are your thoughts on the replacement? What are your thoughts on the Marshawn Lattimore first? And then afterwards, is there anyone else that you're looking at?
I like the idea of Lattimore. I like the idea of taking advantage of a team just having to take it. I like Lattimore a lot, especially with what he was able to do against Mike Evans. He just shut him out the entire year. I forgot my train of thought.
You're good.
I really like that idea of him and I feel like it would take a lot of the pressure off of Rocky Sin, because he was asked to cover number one guys these past 2 years a lot. When Rhodes was out, and then his first year, he was lining up against Julio Jones. He was lining up against some of the top guys in the league, and they trusted him with that. And so maybe he was a little bit, what am I trying to say? He was a little bit more teased, I guess, when going up against those top guys in the league. But if you have a Lattimore to take away those number one receivers, then you have Rock play the second guy who still could be really good, like if we were playing against the Falcons, which we don't. But you have Lattimore on Julio, you have Rock on Calvin Ridley, Rock on Calvin Ridley if he's on the outside. I like that matchup because he's a physical receiver. Yes, Calvin Ridley's quick, but if you're putting Rock on the outside where he has to face a number 2 receiver instead of a number 1, I think he's going to look a lot better.
Okay. So that would help out a little bit, especially if you have like a solid Marshawn Lattimore who can lock down anybody opposite of you. We got some guys out here talking about who is it? I'm missing some of this stuff. Okay. So, hey, Chris Troger here says EJ Speed might be ready at linebacker position. That might not be a bad idea, but the problem is EJ Speed is more of an outside linebacker as well, not more of an inside guy.
You would have to move Bobby Okereke back inside, and then
yeah. Sarah Real mentioning the $7 million cap space. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. But like I said, there's 7 starting positions, and 6 of those 7 starting positions cost money.
Oh, yeah.
So middle linebacker is the only one that's not really a huge money taker. But when you're talking quarterback, left tackle, cornerback, defensive end, that's a lot of money that you have to drop on starting positions on the Colts. Moving down through the line, Swaggy. What's up, Swaggy? Appreciate you being here. He's talking about how do you feel about trading up. He don't like Wentz and Darnold. I don't like the idea of he's yelling about Justin Fields.
I seen that.
I've given my thoughts about Justin Fields. I really didn't want to get into the offense, okay, too much in this one. There would be this Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be doing my offensive side, okay? We'll get into that at that point because he also says, hey, they need a number 1 receiver. I don't fully agree with that either because I think Michael Pittman Jr. can take that number 1 receiver slot.
He's an offensive guy.
Michael H. Tell Darren Waller that Kenny Moore's a smaller guy. He is a smaller guy. I didn't say the man couldn't jump 8 feet in the air. I just said he's a smaller guy. All right. But that was a fantastic interception. Oh my God.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. That was, in my opinion, top 5 highlight play of the year in the NFL. That was an absolute stud of a
Catch
play.
of the year candidate, like Malik Hooker, week 1 against the Chargers. I was there for that.
Was you?
Yeah, I was
awesome.
in the house. Overtime, it was beautiful. That's how I got the Grover Stewart interview.
Right. That's right.
I got Darius Leonard and Anthony Walker and Quentin Nelson signed mini helmet. It was fun times.
Fun times.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, do we think that Trey Hendrickson's season was a fluke?
I touched on that earlier when Carl Lawson was brought up. I think that teams are going to overpay him.
Mm-hmm.
He showed that he can be good. He's shown that he has those sparks. I just think like I said, the analogy, you have a guy, he's drafted, first few seasons doesn't do much, last few seasons shows out, plays really well, and then goes a free agent, makes that big money, and then just slowly dies off. They don't have the best career. They're a backup. They're this, that, or the other. I don't think you pay a guy like that big money because he's going to want a 3 or 4 year deal for decent money, especially if we're talking with Houston making 10 million, Denico Autry making 10 million. This guy's going to want 15 million or something like that, which some of the top guys don't even want that. But there's going to be those teams that overpay because they're desperate. And I don't think the Colts go that route whatsoever. I don't think they go Carl Lawson or Trey Hendrickson because of that situation that I proposed.
All right, this free agency, they got a lot of older, very good cornerbacks right out there, right? Well, when we're talking Richard Sherman, we're talking about Patrick Peterson, we're talking about AJ Boye, multiple guys. If there was one guy in the free agency right now at cornerback that is a free agent, not a trade proposal like I brought up, who would that guy be?
I have 2 answers, or kind of 3, but the second one is grouped together. The first one is I think everyone wants him, but I don't think he's going to become a free agent, and that's J.C. Jackson. I think the Patriots are obviously going to re-sign him. He was wonderful. He deserves to be re-signed for that year that he had. But if he makes the open market, that would be, again, it's going to be a lot of money, but that would be like a Marshawn Lattimore, not the same potential, but it's that number 1 corner without trading a first-round pick. And my second answer is one that probably not many people are going to share with me, but I think a Jason Verrette or a Charvarius Ward, sorry, from the Chiefs. I like
that
Verrette.
Could be a tongue twister.
Oh, yeah. I like Verrette. He battled injuries. He went to the Niners. I think he got injured there his first year. They chose to give him another chance. This year, he played extremely well, considering what he was projected to be, which was 3rd, 4th string, injury-prone guy. He's a veteran, brings that veteran presence. He maybe not one of the top guys in the league, but he's still shown that presence. He still played extremely well. And with Ward, my mom and dad are Chiefs fans, and so obviously I watch a handful of those games, and I see what they do good and what they necessarily don't. He was a solid piece. Same with Fenton and Snead. He was a solid piece for the Chiefs. But now that they have Snead and they have Fenton, and Breeland's a free agent too, but don't know where that's going to end up, they don't need 4 cornerbacks that are average and fighting for the starting role. I think either Ward or Breeland walks, if not both of them. And if Ward becomes a free agent, why not try and bring him to Indy to battle for a position, draft a guy later on, work it with what we got.
Yeah, that is one thing about the Kansas City Chiefs. Everyone was hammering on how bad their run defense is, but the fact of the matter is they were like the Indianapolis Colts when Peyton Manning was there. They weren't really worried about stopping the run. They expected to be ahead in every game and forcing you to throw the ball. So they were all on pass rush and good corners to be able to handle that situation. So they are stacked out there with the cornerback positions. Absolutely. Let's see what happens. We might end up getting some second fiddle guys, dropping out of a pretty decent secondary from a team that knows how to go out and get good secondary guys. Sometimes you got to rely on somebody else's natural abilities to check out people in the draft when that is your weak point. Like we talked about, Ballard's great at finding like running backs, offensive linemen, linebackers, but he kind of
tight ends.
Yeah, tight ends, but he's not very good at that whole cornerback situation. I mean, he's actually pretty good at safety too.
Yeah.
What happened with Hooker? It's all injury stuff, in my opinion. I think Hooker's actually going to end up being, if he could somehow find a way of staying healthy, will end up being a very big safety for somebody if he can stay healthy at some point.
Yeah. We just don't have that information to pay him at the moment with our other needs, especially when we have a guy like Julian Blackmon, who was a star this year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my guy. I really appreciate you being here and taking the
Yeah, of
time
course.
to spend with me, man, and bringing over your entire extended family over here. Why don't you go ahead, let the people know a little bit about you and where they can find you, and so that they know.
I don't do much. I hang out on Twitter, at I am Sears. I play some video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/I am Sears. You know, if you feel like it in the video game mood. I just don't do much. I'm trying to get back into football. I absolutely love the game. Played it for many years, as you can see in the corner, my jersey. But just absolutely love it. I want to get back into it. I know how to take that break for a while. Maybe not writing's the best thing I want to go for right now. I know I had those interviews, but hey, I mean, if we get a talk shop, it's a lot easier than writing. I'm completely willing and always down to come back.
All right, I'm gonna bring up one more guy because Jack brings him up. Stephon.
No.
Stephon Gilmore.
No, thank you.
First off, I think I think Bill Belichick will want too much in compensation for him on the trade. Okay, and he's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend high compensation draft picks for somebody who's already up in age, because I want to spend that money on someone who's entering their peak of their career, not walking out of that peak of their career. I honestly, I think they're going to want at least a second round pick for Gilmore, and that's just too much for me right now, considering I think that Gilmore maybe only has 2 or 3 years left in him.
I think they'd want it first, just because besides being out this year, he was still top 2 cornerback in the league, and nobody really could argue that. Everyone would say he's top 2. We don't know if he's 1 or 2 because there's a lot of great guys, but he's up there. He's one of the people that you have to bring up. I don't think he gets released. There's no shot they release a guy like that. You don't, except for J.J. Watt, you don't release a star guy like that. I think they may try and trade him, but they would have to bring back J.C. Jackson. That would have to be guaranteed so that they have that replacement. But if I were the Patriots, I'd hold on to him. I would want J.C. Jackson and Gilmore. Then what? You have to worry about the run and then get a quarterback, and you're back in the playoffs.
What's scary is, okay, so I do a lot of stuff with a guy named Ray Rout, Dear Pats Nation. Yes. I'm on a Patriots channel as a outsider, you know, kind of. They want someone in there that is not a homer, and I'm not a Patriots homer. And I give them straight up my honest opinion.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of Colts fans won't like this, but I think the best free agency pickup that the New England Patriots could get this year is Anthony Walker Jr. And that's the truth. It's sad. I'd hate to see it, but it would be a great move by the New England Patriots to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Nomadic does. I brought up Anthony Walker. What is the likelihood we just go with A Walker again? The issue. I would love to have Anthony Walker back.
Absolutely.
We all would. We're all fans of Anthony Walker. Come on. I mean, there's a few people out there that are like, oh, Anthony Walker's not athletic enough. He was much better in this past season than what he was his first 3. Okay. But I mean, there's just no way. Teams out there are going to pay big money for the stuff that he brings. He has shown that he is a top 5 middle linebacker in this NFL. When I say middle linebacker, I'm not talking about outside, the athletic kind of guys. I'm talking about that middle linebacker. Stop the run, read the defense, read the offense, make sure your defensive guys are in the right position and call the plays on the field. He is a top 5 middle linebacker in this NFL. I think he's going to get paid like that by some team. I don't think that Ballard is going to be able to afford to keep him. So
the only way I see him staying is if he makes the conscious decision to not get paid.
Yeah.
Obviously, he'd get paid something, but he would have to take such a small amount compared to what he deserves.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be up to him. We all know he's a great guy. We all know he's great in the locker room. It would be up to him. Would he rather stay with Darius Leonard and be with this team, stay with this team, but make a lot less money? Or could he go to another team who's also fighting for that Super Bowl contender spot, but make a lot of money? And it's just, at this point, it's his decision, because we all know Ballard, if he took less money to stay, we know Ballard would pay him. But, he may not want that. And so the teams that are willing to pay him will definitely do so.
Definitely. All right, guys, this stream's been going on for about an hour. I want to thank, I like to thank Zach Sears again for joining the stream. I really appreciate you. Everybody that's watching live, please hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you're notified next time I go live. There's a little share button over here somewhere down there. Just click that, copy, paste that to your social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, whatever, Instagram. Help me get my channel out to some people out there. I understand that you brought a lot of your family over here who are not Colts fans. As a matter of fact, they're probably not too fond of the Colts, because the Colts really kind of did to them what Tampa Bay did to them in the Super Bowl a couple years back. But
oh yeah, that was fun. That was real fun.
Yeah.
And then the playoffs came around and they beat us. And
yeah.
It was even.
So yeah, it is. Not really, because we beat them in the regular. They took us out of the playoffs, so they still have one up on us.
Yeah.
All right. And it wasn't, and they beat us bad in the playoffs. All right. It wasn't like like we held them under a little. No, they blew us up. All right. With Andrew Luck, they blew us up. All right. So yeah. All right. Thanks so much. Again, until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. Again, special thanks to Zach Sears for being here. And until next time, as usual, have a good one.